The all-new Porsche 911 in this overview in exterior, interior and driving. Let's go. Think about being a designer of a Porsche 911. On the one hand, you can design a car which is drawn like this by every child, and it's, everyone's dream car. It has this typical silhouette. On the other hand, if you do something wrong, millions of people want to lock you up. Well, and so they came to the decision to keep this one here more in an evolution, but they added some retro elements. For example, you can see that the front hood is now cut out in a more rectangular way, and this is, reminding, like some other details, especially of the 1970s Porsche 911 models. I think, it's a quite nice idea to go a little bit more retro again. Also, the lower air intake graphics have been changed, and size-wise, this car has mainly grown in width. So, 4.5 centimeters in the front, both, and in the back. Do you see that? I think you do a little. And here we go with the side silhouette of the all-new 911. It hasn't changed too much. The window line is a little bit lower than before. We will soon also see that again with the comparison to the predecessor model. Important change is that it has mixed wheels. That means in this case here, 20-inch in the front and 21-inch in the rear. So the rear ones are bigger. Those rims styling, I really like that. Those ones are the spider rims, so to say. It has this, 90s BBS style. That's totally my style. Is it also yours? Here also in India red today, but we also showed you also some other colors. Today we also have a silver car and also a yellow car on location. But of course there will be more color choices. On the world premiere, we also showed you a Thomas Blue car, for example, already. I really have to say, when I saw this the very first time at the world premiere, I was a little bit skeptical about the design, but it really grew on me, and it really, took a like on those retro elements. Also, at the rear part right there. At the same time, it looks a little bit more elegant still, so stronger but more elegant, because there are somehow less individual parts. Then there goes an LED stripe all around the vehicle. This is also one of the new elements so far. The all-wheel drive model had that. And also the all-wheel drive models had the wider rear here, or also the GTS. Now all come with a wider rear, again about 4.5 centimeters wider than before. So it makes a stronger appearance. So I already talked about the door handles, but what about the door closing sound? Not the most convincing one, right? So a lot of things this car does great, but door closing sound maybe not. Then you can see everything is wrapped tightly. That's the interior scheme of the 911, has always been. Some small carbon inserts right there. You sit low, as you would expect from a sports car, but again, more and more people would say, I'd rather sit high and upright, like in a Macan or in a Cayenne or something. This one is still the true sports car deal, so you have this sports car seating position. And you can see how the interior, the cockpit here, the instruments, a little bit drawn back. Then we got also this, you could serve some food here as well, right? With some carbon fiber style here too. Inside a 10.9-inch screen is also a little bit drawn back right there, that you can also see it at brighter sunlight. And again, this scheme that everything is wrapped tightly here, also with the leatherette surface. On top of the dashboard, there is, if you have the sports chrono package, most will probably go for it, this analog clock. And in this lower middle console, you can see here driver and co-driver are still split very much. And one more detail look at those instruments. Analog ones right there. We need to have that in a Porsche, but digital speed in the small part there. And then you can change basically what you want to have in both left and right screens. For example, on left, you can have just the speed information, but also navigation info. You can switch it around, then hit the key at the steering wheel again, and then switch around what's on the right screen. For example, the GPS view, or also GeForce meter. Or here, this is just to watch, to stop the time, stopwatch. The real hood right here in the front is the one for the luggage compartment with the 911. And you can open it with the key or from the inside of the car. And you can see, well, on paper, the liter capacity is just 135 liters. However, you can see a backpack and a cabin trolley does fit in here. I can put it in like this, not like this. Then the hood would not be closing anymore. But in this way, it does fit, so to give you also a good impression of what it can handle. We start with the sport mode first, more exhaust sound, little silver suspension, more throttle response, and later shifting up with this 8-speed PDK. That's a dual clutch transmission, as we know from the Porsche models. This car also equipped with the rear axle steering, and it goes 2 degrees across or in the parallel direction depending on the speed you're driving. And we also have a Series 911 in front of us. And there you can also see the rear spoiler going up and down depending on the speed. And the threshold is 90 kilometers for the first level and 150 for the second level. But it's always checking out other stats, and then according to the situation, the rear wing changes. But those ones are the approximate speed figures. Do I feel that the car is a little bit heavier than before? Well, not really, because it is sportier than before still, because they have picked up the suspension game. It is somehow more comfortable, but at the same time, it's definitely sportier because this anti-tilting control is just keeping the car steady and upright. I mean, you should surely be able to see that also on camera, that there's hardly any serious tilting. This is really astonishing. The power figures as we have from the GTS and the predecessor model. So although this is just the S version, so one version basically is above the base model, it already feels like a race car. And in general, is there a big difference between the two-wheel drive and the four-wheel drive model? Well, here on the dry racetrack, the difference is not that much because both have a lot of traction. And in acceleration, this is also an advantage of the rear engine concept. It gives so much weight on the rear axle that you can use all of this acceleration. But I still have the feeling somehow that the two-wheel drive model, let's say, is a little bit more loose to drive. Of course, the electronic stability control, which we're supposed to leave on here, keeps the car steady basically. But somehow the two-wheel drive model felt a little bit lighter, but you can only really feel it on the racetrack. When you're driving on the street, there will be hardly any real noticeable difference from that. But of course on the street driving it will be different when you're in snow or like very rainy conditions or something. So the four-wheel drive model then would be the more suitable one for everyday driving. And especially sound, you know, in this new generation, if you ask me personally, it's not a really impressive one. Or what do you think if you heard it from the outside? I think even from the inside maybe it sounds a little bit better than even from the outside. So, and now to Thomas's driving lounge on the normal road with, some say, the true 911, the one just with rear-wheel drive. That's how it's supposed to be, some say. Well, on dry roads, of course, there isn't a big difference between the rear-wheel drive and the all-wheel drive model. The all-wheel drive model has, you know, it can put some more traction on the ground, therefore it's also a little bit faster in the actual acceleration, but just a little bit. In wet driving conditions, of course, the all-wheel drive has an advantage, or in general in winter. However, with this wet driving mode here, you know, they also have the possibility to limit the power just a little bit. And the noise insulation is, you maybe also hear that, I do have to raise my voice significantly, so it's not that you would say it's a very, very silent sports car. The noise insulation is quite good, yes, but it's definitely that you still feel connected somehow to the noises this car generates. And the thing I probably like best about this new generation is that the suspension brings you more comfort. So, and although we have the one here with the 10 millimeters lower, so if you go for the standard suspension, it should give you even some more comfort. And I think that's definitely a very good thing. I go to the sport mode here. Let's see and feel how that goes. As for the suspension, it goes a little bit stiffer, so it got a little bit more response directly than from that. Then I can also put in here the PDCC for the anti-tilting function, and then the car is hardly tilting at all. It stays just flat. That's really peculiar, and it really feels strange. Last but not least, one more thing. Price, well, German prices are clear already, 120,000 euros for the S and 128 for the 4S, and that's of course really expensive. So yeah, that's just Porsche. They have the biggest sales margin in the whole automotive industry, the only manufacturer that earns in a 5-digit figure per car, true revenue per car, 5-digit, and that's of course because they're so expensive. And now to our conclusion for today with the all-new Porsche 911. Well, for sure it has been an evolution of the whole vehicle, and you might think, is it just an extensive facelift or something? But then a lot of technological details have been updated. The interior has also been digitalized mainly. This is also the key development right there. Other than that, it has remained relatively the same. Also from the space it offers, of course, it's somewhat limited as being a sports car. As for the driving experience, it has become even sportier than before, and well, that was hardly possible, but it actually is. And at the same time, it's a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more direct and precise to ride, so they really fine-tuned the whole driving experience, and they made it somehow even easier to drive the car. However, it still transports this iconic characteristic feeling, and that's what I meant initially by that this car, although it's really fully digitalized meanwhile, is one of the cars that comes as close to delivering you, let's say, a classic vintage experience as far as it goes. So what do you think about the all-new Porsche 911? Let's discuss this one in the comments, and please also join us next time.